Here we are on episode, where are we at? 130, episode 130 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. Now coming to you live from Butler, Wisconsin on Tuesday. That's right. Trash Talk Tuesdays. That's what we're doing. Really, the reason was Mondays were more of a manager day. Tuesdays a maker day. And we make shit happen here on the Trash Talk Business Podcast by talking about trash. That's right. This is our opportunity every week to come together for an hour to talk about how we can grow, scale, and build our junk removal dreams. As always, I'm your host, Andy Weins, and today I'm joined by my friend Maite. Maite, man,
you messed it up, Andy.
I have one job. Maite, you know, we got to put the I before the A, except after C. All right, Maite, it's Quinn, right? Is that last name?
Yeah, that's right.
So I knew that one. I knew she didn't put her last name. I knew her last name because I know her. All right, Maite Quinn joined us on the Trash Talk Business Podcast. Maite, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. This is very exciting. I'm a little scared that we're live, but okay,
I love it.
Here we go.
Yeah,
here we go.
Because again, our show prep for the people that have been on the show and been listening for a while, my show prep is I do my other show. I go downstairs, I make me a cup of coffee. Here we go, coffee, and then I come upstairs, and Taylor says we're going live in 30 seconds, and then I tell her, Maite was like, hey, how do we pronounce your name? She said it. I screwed it up. No big deal. And then I go, yeah, we're going live. And she goes, this is live. I go, oh yeah. Like we're not gonna let you have anxiety ahead of time. Like we're here to do work. Also, all right. Something on my camera keeps taking me out of
it does because you keep leaning back and it goes.
I move around. I don't know if you knew this, Maite. I move around a little bit. And I think the last time we had a call was at home. Also, I got a standing up desk now, so I'm standing. So my movement, I got a lot more freedom of movement around here. Here we go. All right. Eric with a Q. Eric Ship. Love the advice and logic.
Oh, so people are like they come in and say things.
They just Maite. We're going full hua. Never go full hua. It's an army joke. All right, Maite. Why are you here today? What are we going to talk about?
So we're going to talk about resource recycling, the conference that's coming up in Louisville, Kentucky, November 13th through the 15th. And you're going to be speaking there too. So we want to promote that and talk about it and get some more people to come.
There we go. See, I love it, right? This is an honest and earnest ask. Last week, I hosted a recycling summit here in Milwaukee to talk recycling. We ended up talking operations. What did we all talk? We talked operations. We talked recycling. We talked warehousing. We talked financials. A lot of stuff we ended up talking about. I want to do a shout out real quick. Shout out to the attendees of that show summit. So we had Joe from American Dumpsters up in Minnesota. We had Spencer and Michael from KNS Services up again in Minnesota, outside of Twin Cities. Austin from Veteran Solutions. He's in Dallas. Veteran Site Solution. He's doing junk removal down there in Dallas. James from actually, I have my sunglasses. Move My Mess out there in Ohio, and also Dalton from Ohio, JRE Junk Hauler. So, anyways, those 6 guys came. We had a mastermind. Started noon on Friday through, I don't know, about 8 o'clock. We left the fish fry, and we picked things up again at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. Went about 9 hours strong, talking recycling, warehousing, operations, finances. Great mastermind. It worked out so well that James and I are now going to put on quarterly masterminds here in Milwaukee. He's a marketing guy. I'm an operations guy. We're going to come together, build out these quarterly masterminds, keep about 10 to 12 people. Really focusing on operations and finance, because those are the 2 areas of strength. And those are the 2 areas that get you to grow from $250,000 to $1 million. And that's our sweet spot. Guys that are in business 2-3 years, they're trying to go from that $250,000, 1 or 2 truck operation to that 3 or 4 or 5 truck, $1+ million operation in the next 2 years. So anyways, shout out to those guys. They put in the work this weekend. You know, they traveled, they put in the money in, and we had a great weekend because of it. So now we're talking in 2 weeks, not even less than 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. 2 weeks from tomorrow.
The 13th is Wednesday. Yeah.
Yep. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I'll be flying down to Louisville to speak at the Resource Recycling Conference. I've never been to this conference. Tell me. So Maite and I have known each other yearish, maybe.
I think it was 2 years ago, right? It was 2 years ago. It was a year and a half ago. It was at WasteCon.
Yeah. Waste Expo. Yeah. Yep. So we've been the waste, and that's the thing. This is what I really want to preach in this industry. Junk removal, we don't have our own industry association. We don't have a convention that everyone kind of agrees to. Like there was another expo last weekend in California. This other guy that does a podcast put it on, Sonoma Hauling. Good dude. A couple of years ago, JRA put on a conference like 2 years in a row. We don't have like this annual no shit place to be like there is with Waste Expo, or in this case, Resource Recycling Expo, that really highlights our industry. And so what I tell people is take the time and money, put in the education. We determined over the weekend 2.5% of top line revenue needs to go into re-education. So hillbilly math is if you're doing $500,000, right, set aside around 12.5 a year to educate yourself. Right. And that's conferences, that's masterminds, whatever those things are. We ran the numbers, and it was somewhere between 1% and 5%. We all agreed that less than 1 is inexcusable, right? You're not even taking the time. And over 5% is oversaturation. There was a year, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 22. I went to 13 conferences in a 12-month period. And that half of them I've never even gone back to because I'm like, yep, not my place, not for me.
Yeah.
So that was overextending myself. So anyways, 2.5%. So if you're doing $250,000 a year, right, you should be spending between $5,000 and $10,000 on yourself to educate yourself. Maybe that's 2 big conferences. Maybe that's a mastermind. Maybe a couple weekend retreats. That's what we determined. Because, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just so because when you say your industry, it's not, you don't consider yourselves waste haulers. You consider it's a different industry.
Well, I look at junk removal as we're in 3 different places. We are in waste removal, right? There's that piece. Right. We are in home services because we're physically going into the house, like a plumber, electrician, mover, cleaner, right? And then I also look at us in the logistics and recycling world, right? Yeah. We're running trucks, we're doing logistics. So we're waste because of the byproduct. We're in home services because we're physically going into houses. Like the waste industry doesn't go inside your house.
No.
Right? They pick up your bin on the curb or your 8-yard or your 40 or whatever you got out back, right? So we're not waste. Home services, most home services are physical house or yard, right? They're working on plumbers, electricians, carpenters. They're working on a physical house. And I think about like cleaners and things like that. We're similar there. The difference is we're more project-based, while cleaners are more like you have a cleaner, they come every other week, or so. But it's similar because we're interacting with the things within the home, not the physical house itself. And I lean heavy on waste, on logistics. I lean heavy, and that's why I'm talking to you, right? Because I look at it as, well, hold on, we have the opportunity to recycle and recover material every day. Waste is merely a byproduct of the service we offer. Right. If you're a carpenter, I used to be a carpenter for years, right? When I'm a carpenter, I go to Home Depot. I buy nails and screws and lumber and doors, right? I put the door in, I use nails and screws. Well, I'm going to have caulk tubes and leftover wood and plastic wrap from the installation as my byproduct of the product I use to serve the house. We go into houses, and when we have this mindset of what can I recover first, waste is merely a byproduct. Oh, this is the stuff I can reuse and donate. This is the stuff I can repurpose and donate or give away. This is the stuff I can recycle and take to a metal recycling facility or electronics waste hauler. And I know there's going to be a portion of this material that's MSW, municipal solid waste. I know a portion of this will end up going to getting landfill. I know a portion of this is tires and things like that are of a hazardous nature that need to be handled separately. So it's like, well, it's not, so it's not that. And we still go in people's houses. So if you look at the SBA looks at junk removal as a $10 billion segment of the $60 billion waste industry. And the more we talk about it as junk and waste and garbage, the less we're talking about how we improve the house, how we make the house better, and how we are impacting the recycling world. And that's why this conference next 2 weeks from now down in Louisville is so important. I want people from our industry to start identifying with waste and with recycling less than waste.
Right. Yep. I love that.
So what do we all cover? I know what I'm speaking out of the conference. What else is being covered at the conference? What am I going to learn being a junk removal aficionado?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm excited because when I go speak at conferences, I love it. I take it all in. My 45 minutes, hour on stage that's my time to perform. The rest of the time I'm an attendee soaking it all up. What are we looking at next week?
Yes. So what's interesting about this, so we put on 3 conferences, right? So we do e-scrap, which we just had that a month ago, to electronics recycling. And we do the plastics.
I spoke at electronics one. I talked about how to put on e-waste events, electronic collections events.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. And I love that conference. That was, y'all had in New Orleans 2 years ago. New Orleans that's my second city. That's my favorite city. Any reason to go to New Orleans, I'm there. So post conferences in New Orleans, I'll always be there. I was in
And then
Louisville over the summer. It's not that exciting. Like it's not. They have a really good
well,
cemetery.
you're trying to encourage people to go. Say how exciting Louisville is.
No. I'm saying go to Louisville. No, go to Louisville for 2 days. Go see the cemetery, and then bounce out. No, because New Orleans is. When I go to New Orleans, I add a day or two on, and I eat. I'm honest with my audience. No, Louisville, they're not known for any food. I'm a foodie. Now,
Oh, no, it is actually. It's supposed to Nulu. So we're going to be like 2 days.
Talk to me because I was there for 2 weeks this summer and nobody could tell me what food they were known for.
Yeah. So, well, Nulu is supposed to be like the 18th best city to have food in. So supposedly that's what I was just reading. Right. And so it's a different sector of Louisville. There's also, I've been doing a little bit of research there. There's also this like crazy old amusement park that's closed down. It was from the 1800s, and you can go and walk around. It's supposed to be like haunted. So it's kind of cool. It's on Rose Island. Yeah.
There you go. That sounds interesting. They also have a very famous cemetery where Muhammad Ali is buried, and also the lady that wrote the Happy Birthday song.
Oh, okay. There you go.
If you're into cemeteries, like that's the thing to do. They do like 20 years ago. We went through New Orleans or through Louisville. When I was training for Go Iraq, we were training at Camp Atterbury, and we went down to Louisville for the day. And they had really good museums. I remember going to a couple of really good museums. I'm a museum guy, so Louisville does have good museums. Cool architecture downtown. Now I've been there for the Derby. That's fucking nuts. That's bananas. Okay. Kentucky Derby's awesome. I'm not knocking Louisville. It's not New Orleans. I'm going. Right? Do as I say, not as I do. I'm going to be there. I'm going to find something to eat. One of my best friends I deployed with years ago. He lives in Louisville, so I'll catch up with him over the weekend or the week.
Yeah, so check out the area NULU. That's supposedly where the cool restaurants are.
That's where the cool kids. That's the other thing. When you go to conferences, for people that are listening and will listen to this that don't go to conferences, once you get there, you figure it out. Like you're like, hey, here's 1,000 other people that have no clue what they're doing. We'll figure this out together, and you end up going to dinner and getting cocktails. The worst thing you can do at a conference is sit in your hotel room the whole time. Like the point is to go there and network and learn and take it all in and let your business be for 2 days. Like check out of your business, check into yourself for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to do, but if you can actually be there and listen and learn, it's definitely well worth it. And definitely making relationships and, networking is awesome.
Well, you spend the time and energy and money to get there, right? Yeah. If you're going to sit in front of your laptop the whole time, you can do that back at home for less money. Right. All right. So you do the plastics conference, the recycling conference, the e-scrap conference.
And so then resource. So resource is really geared towards state, county, municipal leaders in the recycling space, right? So like every town too, like is different. You could have the guy who drives the truck is also in charge of the recycling and everything else. So you really have a broad amount of the different types of people coming in. There's policymakers, there's industry, people that are in the waste hauling, recycling. There's people that are into composting, people that are into reuse, into like anything that's in the household, anything that communities need when it comes to waste and recycling. And so there's also, policymakers. And biggest thing this year, I think, is all about EPR, right? Extended producer responsibility. We have it now 5 states. And it's really it could change the landscape.
Explain that like a kindergartner.
Sure. So
I've been talking about this for 10 years and reading about it and explaining, like I wrote a paper in college 10 years ago about this. So like this is my jam. I love this. You explain your way and I'll break it down hillbilly version to fill the gaps in.
Sure.
From what I understand.
So as it's been going on in Europe for many, many years. Also in Canada, been going on for many years. So people have been talking about that, like you said, for 10 years, and it's finally coming. And people never thought that would happen. And the fact that we have, 5 states have passed this, and essentially what it is, let's think of it as like a bucket where we walk, say I'm the person holding the bucket. I'm going up to all the brands and I'm saying, give me money based on all the packaging that you have out in this state. And I'll take that money and I'll figure out how to build infrastructure around collecting it.
Yep.
Right.
It's prepaid subsidies, essentially.
Yep. And so basically you have one organization, which is called CAA right now in the US, that will be responsible for doing that collection. Right. And they're working closely with the state to build out that infrastructure, to give like reward, basically put out all the RFPs for the collection of the material and essentially reward those companies with the long-term contracts to.
And here's the opportunity when it comes to resource recycling. A lot of people this weekend with my masterminds, a lot of people on the show, one of the challenges we have in junk removal was the seasonality of it. Well, the challenge is we're very residentially heavily, and everyone's like, I want more commercial work. Here's the opportunity. With legislation like this, there's now money being put aside at the state level for local municipalities to facilitate this work, theoretically. And a lot of the municipalities, they're not looking to build an infrastructure. They're looking to allocate those dollars so private companies like ours can potentially facilitate it. So when I talk about electronics collections events, we did 19 events this year. Of those events, when we take it to our e-waste recycler, we get almost double, actually over double. We get double the price per pound because we're a certified collector in the state of Wisconsin, DNR certified, which means we have to go through the process of becoming certified, which is not difficult, but there's annual checks. We have to do all reporting. Because of that, we get paid twice as much as anybody else that brings them electronics. Now we have to hit volume thresholds and things like that. It's because we're legitimate business. We're not chucking a truck. And so now these subsidies, so but one of the few industries that it's in, pretty much it's still state by state. This came through California, is electronics, right? When you buy your new Samsung phone or iPhone, where you buy $1,000, there's $20 of it that's put aside, charged to the manufacturer, that goes to the state to pay for that phone to get recycled at end of life. I talked about this 20 years ago when I worked at Best Buy. Is what are we gonna do with all these tube TVs? It's like, oh shit, no one thought about that. So ultimately, you, the consumer, you're paying for it because Samsung and Apple aren't eating that $20, right? They're just marking the phone up $20 more. So you're incentivized to take your electronics to somebody. The thing is, in Wisconsin, we have certain cities and municipalities and counties where they do not have permanent electronics collections. And so we can get paid by the state. We're getting paid for one next year. We're putting one on because there's a county that has no electronics collections. And so we're getting paid to put on an event because there's costs associated with it outside of the dollars for recycling. And we have to promote it. We have to collect so many pounds. We have to justify the money said. But they earmark that money at the state and give it to us to put on the electronics collection events for these underserved communities. And now with all this legislation, what are the 5 states that have passed it so far? Because I'm excited. Electronics have been doing it for years, but now we're really dialing it in.
So it's Oregon and Colorado right now. And then it's California. Maryland is, I don't know if Maryland's actually passed yet, but they're in the midst of passing, as well as Maine, and there's one more. No, that's it. Right. And then there's others like Washington State's talking about it. But the two that are actually going strong right now are Oregon and Colorado.
So that's it. I had the opportunity. I ran a business in California years ago, a junk removal business, a junk removal franchise. And a lot of people are like, oh, does it suck working in California? I'm like, no, they love recycling. And so long as you play the game right, it's a good business to be in because they actually subsidize you to do the right thing. Now California's got their other issues. I'm all about veterans and the environment. If you take care of veterans and the environment, I'm good. California, I'm not sure their veteran situation. I do know they take care of the environment. And so for the people that live in those 5 states, that's the way to be. I also know that typically what happens is Europe develops the processes and the best practices. California adapts it. And then what happens is either the states basically just take California, reheader it, Wisconsin or whatever, and then here's the deal, or the federal government or the EPA picks up with California. That's why if you ever look like big trucks, they always have that California emission certification because their emission certification is so much higher. So if you want to drive in California, they have these crazy emissions. So it's like as long as you pass California, you're going to pass everywhere else because it's the highest standard overall. So anyways, that's
right.
So as much as I shit on political parties and religions and states based on information, right? I'm not going to say California's all bad when there's great things that California does. I appreciate, right? And generally I stay away from shitting on people because, then you get it on your own boots and who needs that? So yes, California, yay, recycling, way to go. And Oregon and Colorado are obviously relatively leading. Maryland's an interesting one. I wasn't going to guess that. And then certainly Maine. Maine has some great legislation. Never been to Maine. People tell me it's the most beautiful state. It's like untouched. Like we just like they landed on the East Coast, and the French, the English, the Americans, the Canadians, like everyone just like, nah, we don't want it. We'll let it be. Like everyone just like bypassed it. Yeah. They just like Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. They're like, for the birds.
Beautiful coast too. Beautiful coast. It's really rocky coast, and
I gotta get someone here. Shout out anybody that's in Maine. Hire me to come do consulting for you. Pay for my airfare. You don't have to do that. Just tell me to come. I'll show up. Who am I kidding? I will go for I will work for lobster. We talked about foodie. Feed me for 3 days and I'll give you all the answers. So I
was just there. The Isri now Rima had their board meeting there 2 weeks ago.
I have, if I can get it in focus. Here we go. This is the best young and brightest.
Oh, yeah.
Put on by Rima this summer. I spoke down there in Mobile, Alabama. I like Mobile. I'm getting more. So that's the other thing. So NWRA, the National Waste and Recycling Association, REMA, right? These are two associations that here in junk removal, it's advantageous for us to at least pay attention to them. Get the daily or the weekly emails, read the blogs, go to their website, go to the conferences, see what's going on in the waste and recycling world, and then come to conferences like the Resource Recycling Conference, because this is where we connect. You want to get in with your municipality? You can either go to all the municipalities or you go to the conference, find who the players are at the state, county level, right?
Right.
Listen to how they talk, right? You talk about RFPs, like, right? Most people in our business, we don't do RFPs, right? Wow. And yet in the government, that's it. Request for proposal or RFQs, request for quote. Like, learn that language. And when you use that language, you can start hauling. One of our listeners hit me up like 2 months ago. He's like, hey, he lives in Podunk, nowhere. And he's like, hey, my city wants me to start doing bulk pickup like one day a month. I go, what's the problem? He's like, yeah, they'll pay me an hourly rate and I can take it to the landfill, the transfer station on their dime. I go, awesome. Do that while your truck drives down the road. Everyone's going to see it, right? And then you're the guy who goes, yeah, I can't see a reason why not to. I go, yeah, neither can I, right? The taxpayers pay, goes to the county or the city. They distribute the money, and one of the things that they have earmarked is bulk item pickup. So it's like the 10,000 residents pay for it, 100 people use it, and yet it's available to everybody else. Get paid, baby. Like, what are we doing?
We had once a year bulk pickup in my town here in New Jersey, and they put out an RFP for it, and the quotes came in way too high, and so now we don't have it anymore.
There's this woman I dated down at Elmhurst, really nice area out of Chicago. I found out they had bulk pickup one day, and I mean it's a nice area. And I'm like, I'm gonna bring my I'm let's not. I'm gonna tell you a little bit of story about where I came from. I grew up driving around not driving. I was 5-6 years old. My dad would drive us around the nice neighborhoods in our 87 Dodge minivan, this white minivan. It only had 2 rows of seats, or the 2 bucket seats in a row. I sat in the 5-gallon bucket when we were going to church, because there's 4 of us kids and room for 3. So I sat in the 5-gallon bucket. Anyways, we would drive around with that thing, nice neighborhoods day before trash day, and fill it up with whatever we could, bikes, toys, skateboards, any scrap we could find. And so I grew up that way. And then in 2009, when I was laid off, I started driving around northwest of Milwaukee with a van and a trailer. So anyways, I'm dating this woman, classy chick, right? Dad's a doctor kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, there's so many goodies out here. She's like, we're not driving around. I was like, you're not. So I was like, tell me what it is next year, because I always drove my Jeep down there. I'm like, I'm bringing my box truck next year. I'm bringing my box truck, and we are going dumpster diving. Like, there ain't a dumpster I drive by to this day that I don't want to peek inside. Right? I do all right for myself. I got a nice business, and yet dumpster diving champion, 20 years.
And that's why she's your ex-girlfriend.
There's a lot of other reasons. Yes. She didn't see the value that I found in people, the places, and the products I interact with. Yeah.
But actually, my waste hauler here.
Yeah.
He's owner. He has probably about 10 trucks, but every time he has any garbage pickup days, he comes around in his own truck and takes out the scrap before his guys put it into the.
First of all, that's the good stuff. Also, I had John Sacco with Sierra International.
Yep, I do.
Big guy in the industry. I mean, for the listeners out there, John Sacco, he's one of my mentors. Big guy in the industry. Posts on LinkedIn more than I do. He was on the show about a year and a half ago, and he started beating me up because on his show, Repurposed, I think it was season 2, episode 1 or episode 2. The name of the episode was Words Matter. And so he wants us to get away from the word scrap and scrap yards. And so it's recyclable metal and recyclable and metal recycling facilities. And so, yes, I am guilty of using that word. Hell, even in Louisville a couple weeks ago was the Scrap Expo, right? So the industry is still scrap. Well, look at ISRI.
ISRI now is Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries, REMA, recycled materials. So that we are trying to get. We were talking about getting rid of, with e-scrap. We were saying, do we need to change that name? But I've been thinking, I don't know if I want to do that. I want to lean into scrap. I like scrap. Why? Well, why do we need to get away from it?
As long as we get rid of the word e-waste, right? So it used to be called e-waste. So now we've leaned into e-scrap. So we call it e-recycling. The challenge is when you change a name or like e-recycling, for example, then people are like, oh, cool. What does that mean? And you're like, oh, it's electronics recycling, right? So I found it better to call it electronic recycling because even e-scrap or e-waste, the average person, no fucking clue. They don't know what that means.
Yeah, they don't know.
Right? Scrap is too broad of a term. Now, I grew up on scrap. I grew up in fucking scrap yards. I love me, right? Scrapping. Right. Even now in our facility, I call it our non-ferrous sorting area because that's what it is, right?
Right.
It's still the scrap table, right? It's a non-ferrous scrap sorting area, Because when I say that, people are like, oh, what does that mean? Non-ferrous, it means it doesn't stick to a magnet. Oh, what does that mean? Oh, it's brass, aluminum, copper, stainless steel. And they're like, okay, I think I know what you're talking about now. You're like, well, we're getting somewhere, right? It doesn't have that iron properties.
I think that the e-scrap, the reason I thought like e-scrap, keeping e-scrap is because it's an industry association. So everyone is in the industry. And
change the name of the industry. ISRI is the biggest industry. ISRI is the largest commodities recycling industry. And they changed their name to the Recycled Materials Association. That is huge for our industry.
I think that probably has a lot to do with legislators, right? So it's all about lobbying, right? Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. Well, here, I wrote a book. It's my coffee stain book because it's also my coaster, right? Words fucking matter, right? When you go to legislator and talk about scrap, they're not that excited. Excited. You talk about recycling. Ooh, I want to talk about green recycling because the thing is with recycling, it's generally a bipartisan issue, right? Like both sides can get behind it. I was talking to someone 2 weeks ago about politics. We're sitting in my conference room, and I've had Tommy Baldwin and Ron Johnson both at my facility, both at my conference room table, and they are our 2 state senators. One's Republican, one's Democrat, and every other year, or what they vote. Like for some reason, Wisconsin, we're purple as hell. Like we vote one year, and 2 years later we vote the opposite. So we've always had 1 and 1. The beautiful thing is I've had them both here in the building.
Yeah.
Since we're in a political climate these days, what I've realized is when I talk to politicians about veteran issues or recycling, they're both good with it, right? Yeah. I don't get into guns and abortion and all these other topics that can alienate me and others. Like let's go with the momentum here, boys and girls. So recycling, always a hot topic when it comes to politicians.
The newest word, I mean, it's not new. I've been hearing it for 20 years, but everyone's saying circularity, right? That's the
circular economy. Yeah, I like that as long as we can kind of like upcycle.
Yeah.
Like upcycle and circular economy both sound great. Break it down in logical terms that we understand, right? That's my challenge with upcycle too. Oh, there we go. Taylor put in the chat because Taylor's good like that. Episode 34, December of 22, we had redefining what the metal recycling industry really is with John Sacco. There we go. See there, Taylor's. Find smart people and have them tell you what to do. There you go. Taylor in the background. Shout out to Taylor, our producer. Taylor was MIA at the Masterminds weekend. The 6 guys that came here this weekend for the Masterminds, they wanted to meet Taylor. Taylor did not show up.
He didn't show up. Not good. So what's this Masterminds weekend? Was that? So that's something that it's like this little association that you're developing. You think? Like you're starting, like
could
be.
No. This was back in like April or May. I was like, oh, we should all get together sometime. And then, should's a shit word. So then I dragged, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, it was August, maybe mid to late August. I was on the show, and someone was like, hey, I want to come up see your facility. I was like, fuck it. All right, guys. I literally live on the show. I'm like, all right, October 25th and 6th, come to my warehouse. We'll just hang out for a day and a half. Like that was it. So originally it was going to be a recycling summit, and it was definitely a recycling summit on Friday. And I also came down to the numbers. If I had, had we had 20, 25 people show up, it would have been more of a recycling summit. We would have gone very broad. Right. We had 6 guys show up, and so we kept it narrow. And Saturday turned into a mastermind, and there was also proof of concept, right? It's like I was talking to a lady earlier today from the Chamber of Commerce here. She was interviewing me for an article next week or 2 weeks from now for Veterans Day and what it means to be a Veterans Day entrepreneur. And I told her a story. Early this year, I was teaching at Carroll University. They keep changing their name. I'm not sure what it is. Anyways, about entrepreneurship. And I realized everything in my life is XY axis. I realized entrepreneurship is the intersection of what you're willing to do for free and what someone is willing to pay you for. Mm-hmm. So when I first started in entrepreneurship, it was 2009, and I started driving around the north side of Milwaukee, picking up appliances on the side of the road for free because I found that fascinating. I took them apart for free because I enjoyed doing that. I did that as a kid. I remember our VCR broke when I was a kid, and I took it apart to figure out if I could fix it. And of course, once I took it apart, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like when I first had shitty cars, I would take cars apart or small engines. I never had a desire to put them back together. I only had a desire to take things apart, right? So it's like I was willing to do that for free, and then metal recycling facilities would pay me for that metal. Yeah. And then later in life, I realized, oh, people will pay me to go in their house and take their stuff. Well, that was a novel fucking concept. So anyways, let's go back to how this relates to this weekend. This weekend was, hey, show up and we'll figure it out. And by the end of the weekend, people are like, this is a value. I've done similar things. I paid more money and got less out of it. Let's turn this into something. So now, to your point, we put out the MVP this weekend, which is the minimally viable product. It was low expectation. Let's see what we can do. We had fun doing it. And so now I'm going to be doing quarterly masterminds. And it's going to be come and go as you please. One of the challenges we have as entrepreneurs is I go to a summit, I go to a conference, I get all this information, and then I get back in my business and I don't do any of this shit. And then 90 days later, I still got the same pile of ideas I haven't executed on. So this mastermind is going to be a little more intentional. It's going to be a little more, let's get things done while we're here, right? Give you the tools to improve. And then in 90 days, when you're ready to take on the next, come up. Yeah. When you're not ready to do it, don't. Because I'm not interested in doing a weekly call. I'm not interested in Zoom. I'm not interested in babysitting. I've done all that shit. I've done consulting. Consulting turns into every week like, hey, why didn't you do the thing you said you were going to do last week? Oh, I got busy. Well, shit. Right? Yeah. So that's not interesting. And I've hired coaches and consultants. It's like when I make a 90-day commitment to do a hard sprint, like I'm all in and I dedicate time. Like right now I'm on this kick reading books. I have a book I want to finish by the end of the month, and I'm halfway through it, and I've been working on it for like 3 weeks. It's a heavy book. Never Split the Difference. So I have 3 more days now, tonight and 2 more, to smash out another 120 pages. And it took me 3 weeks to read the first 120 pages. It's like a 10-page at a time kind of book, you know? And so I know what it's like to commit to a 90-day thing. I also know what it's like to commit to something for 90 days, and then 90 days later, you haven't done shit. So it's a grace thing. And so these masterminds are going to be a come as you please. You know, the goal is do a mastermind and get the plan before you're stagnant and you're defeated, right? Because when you're stagnant and defeated, you have that scarcity mindset. You're not going to be as receptive to hearing new ideas, spending time and money that you may or may not have, set aside.
Right. Yeah, no, I think what I like about that, and that I've even when we talk about doing these conferences is that, can we not just go there and hear these conversations and then next year you hear different conversations, but there's no follow through? Like, can we do something where it's like we're talking about this and then, I would love to get people together during that year to try to like move that conversation further. So that by the time you have that next conference, you're actually you've moved, right? There's progression. You need progression in life.
Yeah, celebrating the wins. You got to celebrate those wins along the way. Actually, I got a text message as we're sitting here about a win. One of my friends was going through some shit recently, and she texted me. She quit her job like 10 minutes ago. She texts me. She goes, Email sent, that's a W. It's like, well, great. That took 3 months and good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
She told me this summer why she was quitting. It's like, good. And what it is accountability partners. That's one of the biggest things that business owners struggle with, not having that accountability partner. Like, who's there? Who do you tell? Right. When you tell everybody, nobody's listening. Right. When you tell somebody, you got a better chance. Right. You're very clear. Not your big fuck off, BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal. No, what's the next step? And hold me accountable. I'm in a CEO roundtable called Vistage. And that's the best part about it is we do accountability. Like when we say we're going to do something, someone holds you accountable and you answer to them and you answer to the group when you do and you don't follow through on your goals. It's not what the group wants you to do. It's what you want to do. And so when you fail, you didn't fail the group. You failed yourself. We happen to say it out loud. Right? Anybody can fail quietly. Anyone can fail when no one's watching. Fail in front of people.
Yeah.
Right. Last week on my Andy Weins live show, I talked about instrumental versus intrinsic motivation. Right. Intrinsically, I'm going to do the thing. Right. Instrumentally is right. Little reward and punishment might get you over the line. Right. Like I told myself I'm going to read this book by the end of the month.
Yeah.
Versus saying, I'll read it when I read it. No, I told myself I was going to read it by the end of the month. And my business partner and I are reading one book a month. Well, guess what? He picked this book. I signed up for it. Let's do it now.
I just thought I was thinking about the resource recycling conference, and I was thinking about this one subject that we have, one panel that we have that might be interesting to talk about, is if you could do it all over again in the waste and recycling world and you restart. I mean, right now we have a waste system and we have, plastics recycling of single stream. But if you were to actually be able to start all over again, what would it look like?
What would this question?
I'm asking you that question because that's what we have panelists coming up and saying, hey, if I was to reinvent the system, this is what it would be. So question for you, what would it look like?
The simplest thing, started sooner. I convinced myself. So I really look at the journey started in 2009. I had done side jobs in junk removal in high school. And then even before Iraq, then I went to Iraq, came back homeless for a year. Then I started working for my father's company. I got laid off 2 days before Christmas in 2008. 2009, I had nothing to lose and nothing to gain. And I convinced myself that I wasn't good enough to get into entrepreneurship full time. So I was 24 at the time. My father, he was an entrepreneur from his 30s on. I had nothing to lose, right? My girlfriend left. I had a house and a dog. I didn't have a job. I didn't have any kids. I had no obligations. And I really hadn't healed yet from Iraq. So I took the time to heal for myself and I did the bare minimum to get by. And then eventually I got a job doing concrete and I started going to college. I did the things that I thought were the next best thing. I did the things that were comfortable versus being like, hey, let me figure out this junk removal thing. Right. At the time, 15 years ago, there wasn't the resources there are for our industry. There wasn't a playbook. There wasn't a YouTube channels, right? About 10 years ago, I put a book out called How to Start a Six-Figure Junk Removal Business. And it's pretty dialed in. Those things weren't out there 15 years ago. And 800 Got Junk was out there. I was like, no one's going to fucking pay me to go in their house and move a couch. Like, right. And so I had all these limiting self-beliefs. And then once I actually, and then I convinced myself from 9 until about 2014, for those 5 years. I fucked around. I did it on the side, but I worked. I was bartending, going to college, working full-time construction, and then doing junk removal and scrapping on the side. And then before I left my last deployment in 2014, I told my then wife and everybody, hey, when I come home, I'm going to start this junk removal thing. I'm going to start a company. I'm going to figure it out. Like, I'm 30 years old. I'm done working for other people. And then I remember our first month in business in June of 16. Our goal was to do $100,000 in top line revenue our first year, right? We're like, man, dude, if we do $100,000, we're fucking rich. Like, this would be awesome. We did $13,000 our first month. We did $16,000 our second month. We did $29,000 our third month. We did a total of $380,000 in our first 12 months. And I'm like, why didn't we do this shit earlier? I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur. It's in my blood. My great grandfather had a scrapyard. I got copper running through my veins. I got 2 brothers. Between the 3 of us, we got 0 jobs. We are unemployable, unmanageable individuals. We work really hard to not have jobs. and we love working. We intrinsically work because work is great. I talk about my book. Work is my favorite 4-letter word. I love work. Doing the podcast is work. Keynote speaking is work. Relationships are work, right? And I the satisfaction I get from work, sitting on the couch and being lazy and watching Netflix ain't working. It ain't going to get me moving forward. It's not going to get that dopamine I crave. And so the biggest thing that I'm going to tell people, the time is now. Like earlier today, I was interviewed by that lady about veterans. She goes, hey, what's the piece of advice you have for veterans that want to get into business? And I told her the same 4 words I tell myself. I'm getting them tattooed next week. I'm figuring out where I'm going to get them tattooed, right? DTFT. Do the fucking thing. Everyone has something in life that is their next thing. Do it. I've been emailing you like every other month for the last 18 months, asking to get on a speaking gig, right? Because that's a thing. It's like, hey, Maite, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Right? And it's like, how many emails is it going to take for me to, however many, if it takes 20, then it's fucking 20 emails. Right? And then last week I got on the call with the woman running it. She's like, hey, can Maite hop on the podcast? Absolutely. Let's go. Right?
Yeah. Like, Just do it. You just do it.
Like exactly. Like do the thing, do the fucking thing, whichever one your risk aversion kicks in, right? Do that.
Yeah.
Right. Make the phone call that you don't want to make. Take the chance. Quit the job. We've had Taylor will correct me on this because that's what he's good at. I think 6 now. We've had 6 people over the last 2.5 years, 130 episodes. We've had 6 individuals quit their job as a direct result of listening to the Trash Talk Business Podcast. Like, hey, not sure what I'm doing. Tracy, we had Tracy on the podcast. He was like side hustling. He quit the next week. We're like, hey, man, he worked for like Michelin, like making tires. He's like, man, I hate my job. I was like, just fuck it, man, quit. Like, we're like 4 months in our podcast. We're like episode 20, and we told Tracy to quit his job, and he did. And then we had him on the podcast like 6 months later. He's like, man, this is not going the way I thought it would, and this is awesome. He's like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, he lost his ass on his job. He made tons of money in another job. He's like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but it's better than having a job. I go, that's the spirit of an entrepreneur.
Well, so what did he end up doing?
He started a junk removal company. And
then
then
started junk removal.
Okay. Yeah, and then he started doing demo, and then demo turned into handyman work and contracting. And the last time we wanted him on the show, he was like, man, I got too much shit to do. I ain't got time to be on your stupid show. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so great. That's awesome. So that wasn't my question, but so I'm gonna come back to this.
What do you regret doing? I regret
no. So this is the panel. So the panel is like, maybe I didn't say it correctly, so I'll start again. So basically, we have a panels of 4 or 5 people. Each person one guy comes from composting, one person comes from a background in reuse, another person comes from like waste management, and another person's just been involved in the industry for a long time. And so the question to those panelists is, if you were to reinvent the waste and recycling system, what would it look like? So today in my town, I have waste collection 3 times a week, and I have recycling once a week, and we do not have compost pickup. So the question to you is, if you have a town, let's say it's your town, and you're gonna reinvent how waste and recycling is done to become more environmental, more sustainable, what do you think would be the best way to go about it?
Welcome to Andyville. I would make it really simple. Put the onus on the individuals and make it capitalistically driven, right? So when in Europe, for example, and actually there's 5 states here in the United States that have it where you return a plastic bottle, you get 5 cents. So what ends up happening in Europe is the people where the 5 cents is not worth it, they throw the bottles away. And then what happens? Homeless people, vagrants, people that value those 5 cents will go and pick up the bottle. Okay, me picking up scrap on the side of the road years ago was no different than those guys picking up bottles. It's no different than the people that are picking up aluminum cans after a concert and breaking out the trash bags and pulling the aluminum cans and leaving the trash everywhere and then moving on with their lives. Make it as simple as possible, right, for people curbside to separate material. When I was in 7th grade, I did a science fair project on how much people recycle. And then if I educate them, will they recycle more? Turns out it has nothing to do with science and everything to sociology. So I got like out of 100 points, I lost like 10 points because it wasn't science. Like, it wasn't science. It was a scientific experiment on sociology. However, the weight of what people recycled was double when I told them all the things that they could recycle. And this is, you could put like, oh, you could put books in the curbside. It's like, oh, you can put books in there, right? They also have technology now. I heard about this at Waste Expo, where they could put cameras on an ASL, automatic side loader. They can have cameras. So when you dump a recycling can, it can detect exactly what material it is, take a picture of it, and then it sends a postcard to the homeowner to tell them, hey, you put this unauthorized item in your recycling. This is your warning. Please recycle better. Next time we're fining you. Right? And I want the same thing in the trash. So as the trash is being dumped out, it's like, hey, that was recyclable. We're going to ding you $5 every time you put recyclable material into your trash, right? And it's no different than here. I have my 8-yarders out back for MSW. And when we overfill them, we get hit with an $85 overage fee. When you get hit by the $85 fee, you're like, fuck it, it will change behavior. So I'm all about capitalism changing behavior. So let's incentivize. It's 3 parts. Here we go. Incentivize the right behavior.
Yeah.
Re-educate the wrong behaviors. Right.
Yep.
The word discriminate sounds good. But essentially, de-incentivize. I don't know, like punish. Punish is a little harsh. Punish the offenders.
Slap them. Slap them.
Like, right? Like, make it hurt enough where they're willing to pay it, right? And also too much where they will pay it and they don't want to. They'll begrudgingly change their behavior, right? I'm a capitalist, baby, right? I'm all about capitalism. So do it that way. So that's what I would do. And again, because it's Andyville, we have unlimited money. Right?
To
and
give out
tons of money. We're gonna have cameras everywhere on our trash trucks. We're gonna have less. We're gonna save so much money by having so many less regulations in our city that we're gonna have all our money. All our money is gonna be dedicated to safety, security, and the environment and education. That's it. If it ain't one of those sectors, I'm gonna go work for Elon Musk in the whatever he's doing, the government efficiency department. Yeah.
What about composting? What are you gonna do? Composting?
Oh yeah. Composting. Yeah.
What about
organics or composting? Yeah, because again, this is where when we penalize people for doing the wrong thing, they'll get smart about it. And yeah, then we offer composting. You get a little 64-gallon bin, tipped once a month or whatever it is.
And what about garbage? What's garbage?
MSW, municipal solid waste. There's going to be still a generation of municipal solid waste. Because in the town, I'm only able to
Andyville. You have garbage in Andyville. Okay.
Yeah. Garbage. We have MSW. We have municipal solid waste. There's going to be still a percentage of that because at some point there are diminishing returns. And so all that MSW will be put in. We're going to do a waste to energy program and have incineration or a cleaner version of it. Challenge with incineration works at scale in some areas. Down where when I was in Gitmo, we had an incineration waste to energy program, and it worked there because we had no other choice. We're in Gitmo, we ran out of space to bury the trash, so incineration is cost prohibitive to run at small scale like that. I know the city of New York, New York City does incineration, and big municipalities do incineration. So we'll do incineration and then make sure we have all the fancy filters so that we're not polluting the earth also. So there you go, Andyville.
Okay, that's Andyville. I'll tell you. You want to hear Maiteville? Maiteville. So there's composting, right? So you have an organic bin at your house, and then it's everything else. Okay, everything else.
And then we sort it. We pay people to sort it.
Yes, because now we're not paying anyone to landfill, right? We're going to sort through that, and we're going to put lots of technology into a recycling facility, and you're now going to get a 90% recycling rate.
You see, you want to spend more tax. That's fine. You know what?
Just less money because we're not spending money in the
and also we're not holding people accountable because people will fail. See,
that's right.
I'm giving people the opportunity to fail. You're like, screw it. Keep the eggs and the grass and your organics and everything else. Yeah, your system seems a lot simpler than mine.
Yeah.
Throw away everything and we'll deal with it. Now the cost to landfill stuff is cheap compared to with the right technology, labor's, and then also you're obviously not in the labor market these days. Trying to get people to sort through trash, not a.
Oh, robots. We got robots.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's
robots
what I'm saying.
and
With
AI.
the right technology.
Yeah. It's all about
people
technology. All about technology.
Oh, no, absolutely about technology. Yeah, I like that. Rather use the technology instead of having the camera de-incentivize people. Have the robot pick it out for them. I like it. People are lazy. Make it lazy.
And then anything that left that is actually residue, right?
Yeah.
We can figure out like there's like coal replacement, things like that we can do with it. But still, anything that's left over, we go back to whoever made that and we charge them.
I like it. You go back to the manufacturer of the styrofoam.
Yeah.
Or whatever the
thing
is.
You have to pay for that. Yeah. So now you work towards a system that everything that's going into that bin is recyclable.
I like it. See, what you're talking about is exactly what we do in junk removal. And that's the goal that I have in junk removal, is that when we put material onto our trucks, we're pre-sorting it and we're starting to take it to destinations, metal recycling facilities, single stream recycling facilities, donation facilities, right? We're taking these places versus putting it in the truck, driving the landfill or transfer station, shitting out the ass end, because they get paid by the pound. That's the challenge, right? The landfills are incentivized to make the landfill as big as possible because they get paid and subsidized by the state for every pound that gets processed. They are not in the business of recycling. A lot of the big boys, they do recycling because it's mandated, not because they want to.
Right. They have to.
Have to, not get to. There you go.
Right.
Well, this has flown by for the last hour already. With respect of time, let's get the big finish. We're already here. We've made it to the finish line. What has been your top takeaway from today's conversation?
Now that this was live and it was fun, I had a great time.
You've done podcasts before, right?
I have. I did one with. I've only done a couple. Only a couple.
Okay. I'd have to ask Taylor. Taylor might have this answer. I'll leave the chat up. Taylor might know the answer. I want to say it's 15, 20 out of the 130 podcasts I've done, like 10% or better were with people that have never done a podcast before. Probably 15, 20 people. I know Raven, she was on a couple of weeks ago. Raven Barton, I had lunch with a guy today and he listened to her episode. He's like, oh, she was great. So, Taylor just said closer to 15%. Yeah, so probably about 20 people is their first time ever on a podcast. It's a Zoom call. We're having a Zoom call. Happen to have people chime in and talk. My top takeaway is this opportunity we have at the Resource Recycling Summit conference, whatever the hell it is, resource recycling in Louisville in 2 weeks, is the fact that the challenge we have in junk removal is that consistent revenue. And with this new legislation and these states adapting it and other municipalities anticipating adapting it, the opportunity we have in the private sector is to fill the need, because government and municipalities are lazy. That's what they are, right? They don't want to do anything else beyond the normal things they do. So they are much rather they're incentivized to hire it out. And typically, I'd argue, private companies can do it better. So this is the opportunity we have in the junk removal industry to become more professional, more versatile by doing what we do. At the end of the day, this isn't cleaning gutters or hanging Christmas lights. We're still removing unwanted items from people's homes and businesses. The difference is, instead of going into the home and being paid by the homeowner, we're going curbside and getting paid by the municipality, or we're putting on an event where people bring material to us. At the end of the day, we're still doing what we do best, serving the community. We're having to get paid differently. So that's the mindset I want people to have when they go into this conference or any other conference. It's like, how can I do this? And when you start doing real RFPs and RFQs, it increases your business acumen. You're like, I don't know how to write this. Cool, Google it. Right. Yeah. So instead of this like chucking a truck, how much do I charge for this load? It's more like, how many cubic yards is this? How much weight is it? How much time is it going to take me? Right. What is my other overhead costs I haven't considered? How do I price it? Because like you said, you put it off for RFP for people to do your bulk pickup. Everyone came in high, right? Where do I price it where I make money and yet it's still accepted? Right. So all those things will increase our ability in our industry, the junk removal industry, to become more professional. Because like you said from the top of the hour, I thought you guys are in the waste industry. It's like, not really. We do more than that. We do different than that. And I want us to continue to raise the bar so people see that we are professionals, that this is a skilled labor, right? Be able to remove furniture and different items from people's houses. There's a skill set needed. Where a lot of people are like, oh, it's unskilled labor. It's like, oh, we have to have a license to drive a truck. right? You go work in a manufacturing facility, you don't have a driver's license, and yet we'll call that skilled labor, and yet you have to have a license to drive a truck. You have to have the ability to back a truck and trailer. We run 24-foot box trucks, and one of the guys that was at the summit was like, you let all your drivers drive these? I'm like, well, we train them on them. He's like, you put them in driveways? Yeah, we put 24-foot trucks in driveways every day, right? Movers do it. It's a skill. Like, okay. Yeah. And then do you want some hack going to your house that doesn't know how to take apart furniture and bangs up your doorways as he's pulling the couch out? Or do you want someone that knows how to take it apart, take the legs off, tip it, twist it, L it?
And the other thing I'd say is that one of the things that's great is that when you're able to talk to the municipalities before an RFP comes out and you're able to help, that's when they want to talk. They want to be creative with you. They want to figure out like, oh, I didn't know about this. I didn't know we could do something like this. And you can teach them how to do, more bulk removals and how to make that RFP something that they're going to get a good price for.
Right. You can on the front end, help them write the RFP. So then when you write your proposal, you already, like most times they're like, well, we have a problem. We have money. Help them fill the gap on how to do it. And then happen to be the guy that also bids the work.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're right. Once the RFP is out there, there's like this weird silence. Can't tell anybody anything.
Yeah.
So yes, go to the conference, get smart. Eric with a Q, he lives in Colorado. He goes, Colorado always follows California laws. Truth. Right? California got weed. Y'all got weed. Everyone, like that's the actually who got weed first? Colorado might have got weed first.
Colorado. I think,
either way, yes, most states follow California laws because there's some laws that California does that actually works out. So there you go. Get smart. Come hang out with Maite. Is it Maite?
Yeah, Maite. That's it. You got it.
I totally hesitate.
A whole hour.
Whole hour. Hang out with Maite and I will be there. I'm doing the language of leadership. We're going to talk about how leaders talk in a professional setting to get the most out of the people they interact with, whether that's customers, employees, vendors, and everybody else in between. I'll be doing my talk noonish. I think I'm doing it around the lunch hour. Is that accurate?
Yep.
So I'll be jamming while people are eating. I'll be speaking on Thursday. So I fly in Wednesday afternoon. I'll be there for the happy hour on Wednesday. I'll be there all day Thursday. Speak in the afternoon. Love to come and meet you. If you're interested, Taylor will put a link for it in the chat or something, because that's what Taylor does. He's smart like that. And come find Maite and I at the conference so we can teach you how to be more professional in the industry.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Andy. This was a lot of fun. I had a great time.
Any last words for the good of the group?
See you in November.
See you in 2 weeks. All right, Maite. On behalf of Taylor, our producer, I'm Andy Weins. We thank our guest, Maite, for being on the Trash Talk Business Podcast. You want to be a guest on the podcast? Fill out the form at trashtalkbusinesspodcast.com. We got guests coming up next couple of weeks and more guests thereafter. We're going to be talking to a marketing specialist. We're also going to be interviewing the guys that attended the summit over the next weeks to figure out what they learned from the summit, what they implemented, and how their business has developed. We'll be starting those conversations about 6 weeks from today and then through the end of the year. You want to be a guest? Come on, trashtalkbusinesspodcast.com. And as always, like, follow, do all that other shit. And most importantly, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Tap subscribe or follow to get the latest episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review and tell a friend to listen. To learn more, visit trashtalkbusinesspodcast.com. Bye now.